The State Railways of the Turkish Republic (TCDD) is the government-owned national railway carrier in the Republic of Turkey, headquartered in Ankara. The TCDD was formed on 1 June 1927 by the Turkish government to take over the administration of the existing rail lines within the borders of the Republic of Turkey after the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire, and to build new ones. The Turkish State Railways own and operate all public railways in Turkey. In 2011, TCDD controlled 12,000 kilometers of railways, making it the 22nd largest railway system in the world. In 2014, TCDD carried 78 million passengers and 26 million tons of freight. In 2009, the Turkish State Railways employed 25,593 people. The Turkish State Railways also owns a number of other rail transport companies in Turkey, such as Marmara and İZBAN. TCDD is a member of Interrail since 1994. History. After World War I and the Turkish Independence War, the Republic of Turkey was a new formed country. Even though Turkey had a railway network, most of it was operated by foreign companies. The State Railways of the Republic of Turkey was formed on May 31, 1927. TCDD took over the Chumwa Anatolia Baghdad, a holding company formed in 1924 by Turkey to take over some rail lines in Turkey, on June 1, 1927, and had control over the tracks of the former Anatolian Railway and the Trans-Caucasus Railway line in Turkish borders. TCDD now had rail lines to the cities Istanbul, Izmit, Ankara, Afyon and Adapazarı and Konya. On January 1, 1929, TCDD took over the rail line from Mersin to Adana. Apart from taking over already built lines, TCDD needed to build more line because many important cities were still not serviced by rail. In 1926, TCDD started to build a rail line east to Sivas, reaching Kayseri in 1927 and Sivas in 1930. TCDD continued to acquire from the other rail companies, taking over the Mudanya-Bursa Railway in 1931, the Smyrna-Kasaba Railway in 1934, the Oriental Railway Company in 1935 and the Oriental Railway in 1937. With most of the railways in Turkey under TCDD control, TCDD connected lines such as Kütahya with Balıkesir in 1932 and the former SCP line in Afyon with the former CFOA line. In 1932 TCDD completed the railway to Samsun heading north at Sivas. TCDD continued to build lines, reaching Zonguldak, Erzurum, Erzincan, Dörrbecker and Elazig in the following years. World War II broke out in 1938, slowing down the building. Between 1938 and 1996 TCDD building decreased. The railway only extended to Gaziantep and Van. Operations. The Turkish State Railways operate most trains in the country. Intercity, regional, suburban, freight and most industrial lines are owned and operated by the State Railways. The only other railways in Turkey include İZBAN, which operates commuter rail service around Izmir, and a few other industrial railways. In addition to rail services, TCDD has been responsible since 1927 for operating several major ports which handle 30% of Turkish port activities. Passenger operations. The Turkish State Railways operate passenger services on 90% of the system. These are intercity, regional, commuter and international services. In the railway's first year, 52% of passenger travel in Turkey was by rail, despite the system lacking connections to many parts of the country. Rail transport transport was the main mode of transport for passengers in the following 2 decades, reaching an all-time high of 57% of passenger transport in 1947, but then started to decline after 1950, due to the mass construction of roads. Today, the passenger ratio is slowly increasing with the opening of high-speed rail lines in Turkey. In 2013, almost 21 million of people traveled by train in Turkey. 16.7 million on main lines, 4.2 million on high-speed lines. The share of railway in domestic travels is about 2.2%. The types of passenger service are high-speed rail services and TCDD's Premier service. Mainline, intercity trains operating between major cities. International, trains operating on international routes toward Europe and the Middle East. Regional, trains operating within the respective districts. Commuter trains, currently operating in Ankara and Istanbul. High-speed services. High-speed rail in Turkey began service in 2009. TCDD has branded its high-speed service as Yüksek Hızlı Treni YHT. YHT currently operates on 2 lines, the Ankara-Istanbul High-Speed Railway and the Ankara-Konya High-Speed Railway. On March 13, 2009, the first phase of the Ankara-Istanbul High-Speed Railway entered service between Ankara and Eskişehir. The YHT service between Ankara and the Pendik railway station in Istanbul's Asian side began on July 27, 2014. The train has 6 daily departures in both directions. On August 23, 2011, the YHT service on the Ankara-Konya high-speed railway was inaugurated. The rolling stock used for the YHT service are the Spanish-built HT6500 and German-built HT8000 EMUs. These trains operate at speeds of 120 km per hour within urban areas, but can reach speeds of up to 250 km per hour, 300 km per hour on the dedicated high-speed lines outside urban areas. The HT6500 EMUs have 6 permanently coupled cars, with 4 economy-class cars, 1 cafe car and 1 business-class car. Economy class has 2+2 seating with power outlets, foldable tables and private radio. There is a lavatory at one end of the car. The business-class car has 2+1 seating, with power outlets, greater legroom, private radio, foldable tables and steward service, as well as LCD TVs in front of every seat. High-speed rail in Turkey is still developing, with 2 lines under construction and many more planned. Once the line to Istanbul is completed, travel between Ankara and Istanbul will drop to 3.5 hours, compared to 5 hours by car. By 2023, the Ministry of Transport expects Turkey's high-speed rail system to increase to 10,000 kilometers. Mainline services. Mainline service is the railway's main service. In 2010, mainline services made up for 24% of the railway's passenger traffic. Mainline service includes 3 types of trains: express, blue train and passenger. Express service is between major cities and are fast, comfortable and equipped with modern air-conditioned TVS 2000 rail cars and only stop at important stations. Express trains have an average operating speed of 100 km per hour to 120 km per hour. The most express service is between Istanbul and Eskişehir, with 8 trains daily in each direction. Express service also has overnight trains between major cities far apart. These trains have coaches, a dining car and a sleeping car or a couchette car, or sometimes both. Blue train service was the State Railways' premier express service, starting in 1979 between Istanbul and Ankara, with a blue Delaware 2400 locomotive and custom-built blue rail cars. Today, the blue train service has become a part of the mainline service and uses the same TVS 2000 rolling stock. Currently, there are 4 blue trains in service, operating on the Ankara-Izmir-Istanbul-Adana, Ankara-Adana and Ankara-Malaty lines. All these trains are overnight trains. The Istanbul-Ankara blue train service was cancelled in 2000. Passenger class service is the slowest mainline service, making local stops but not as many as regional service. Passenger service use mainly modernized intercity rail cars and occasionally TVS 2000 rail cars. Passenger class trains used to run on more lines, but today the only passenger class service is the Bosphorus Express. The TVS 2000 rail cars used on mainline service are the most comfortable cars in TCDD's entire fleet. TVS 2000 rail cars may also be used on international service because international services are considered mainline services within Turkey. International services to Europe. The TCDD operates 2 international services to Europe, from Istanbul, the Bosphor Express to Bucharest and the Balkan Express to Sofia and Belgrade. Bosphorus Express to Bucharest, Romania via Edirne, Dimitrovgrad, Stara Zagora and Rus. It has been run from Halkali due to Marmaray project since the 1st of March 2013. Balkans Express to Belgrade, Serbia via Edirne, Dimitrovgrad, Plovdiv, Sofia and Nis. TCDD also connects with Greek trains from Pythia to Thessaloniki, the IC 9091st. International services to the Middle East and Asia. The Heydar Pasture terminal is the terminus for a weekly train to Tehran in Iran. Another train to Iran travels between Van, Turkey and Tabriz in Iran. Additionally, trains from Iran to Syria pass through Turkey. Trans-Asia Express to Tehran, Iran via Izmit, Bilecik, Eskişehir, Ankara, Kayseri, Sivas, Elazig, Tatvan, Van and Tabriz. Van-Tabriz Treni route. The Van, Ozalp, Kapakoy, Razi, border crossing to Iran, Salmas, Tabriz. Former international services Tehran, Damascus train route, Tehran, Tabriz, Razi, Kapakoy, border crossing to Turkey, Van, Tatvan, Muse, Elazig, Malaty, Fivzapasa, Islahiya, Maidanekbes, Turkey, border crossing to Syria, Maidanekbes, Aleppo, Damascus. This service was interrupted when the border between Syria and Turkey was closed due to the Syrian civil war. Taurus Express route, Istanbul, Heydar Pasture terminal, Eskişehir, Kütahya, Afyon, Konya, Adana, Fivzapasa, Islahiya, Maidanekbes, border crossing to Syria, Aleppo, Damascus. Gaziantep, Baghdad route, Turkey, Gaziantep, Karkamis, Akkakale, Ceylanpayna, Senyurt, Nusaybin, border crossing to Syria, Al-Kamishli, border crossing to Iraq, El Yaribia, Rabia, Mosul, Baghdad. It was also running from Istanbul to Gaziantep as mainline until 2003. It is begun again on the 16th of August 2012 between Eskişehir-Adana, but due to renovations, it's shortened to Konya-Adana route on the 15th of March 2013. Dörrbecker Filia Express to Thessaloniki, Greece via Uzunköprü, Pythia and Alexandroupolis. It was terminated in February 2011 due to the economic crisis in Greece. Regional services. Commuter services. As of 2011, the Turkish State Railways operate commuter rail in Istanbul and Ankara, with previous commuter service in Izmir from up to 2006, which is now operated by IZBAN. The railways use the E1400 and the E2300 EMUs on their commuter services. Previously, the newly retired E8000 EMUs and the E4000 electric locomotives were used as well. The first commuter rail service in Turkey was the Istanbul-Halkalı line on the European side of Istanbul, operating from Sirkeci Terminal to Halkalı in 1955. Freight operations. Rail freight transport. From 1980 onwards, rail freight ton kilometers transported by the TCDD rose slightly from 5,000 million ton km in 1980 to 7,000 million ton km in 1990 and 9,000 million ton km in 2000. Approximately 50% of freight moved as minerals or ores, with construction materials increasing to 10% in 2000 from less than 5% in 1980. Food, agricultural products, chemicals, petroleum, and metal sectors each account for between 5 and 10%. International freight accounted for approximately 5% of totals in 2000. As of 2012, 25.7 million ton is transported by rail in Turkey. Two steel companies, Erdemir and Kardemir, top two customers of TCDD, had transported 4.5 million ton in 2012, mainly iron ore and coal. 2.1 million tons of rail freight belong to international traffic. Most of international traffic is between Turkey and Europe, done via Karpigal. Several container trains are running in this route as well as conventional wagons. As of 2014, 26.6 million ton is transported on rail in Turkey. 7.1 million of it is done by private wagons. International transport went down to 1.7 million. Containers are widely used both in international and domestic transportation. 7.6 million ton is carried in containers. TCDD is supporting transportation by containers. Thus, almost all of the private railway companies invested in container wagons, and carrying 20% of all rail freight by their own wagons. TCDD has plans to strengthen freight traffic by adding 4,000 kilometers conventional lines until 2023. That includes new international rail connections to Georgia, Iraq and Iran. TCDD is also constructing 18 logistic centers to enable transportation of more loads by rail. TCDD is planning to increase its transit traffic by constructing Iron Silk Road to connect Europe to Asia. Marmaray is the most important part of this project, which was completed in 2015 and now in service. Another project is Kars-Tbilisi-Baku Railway, which is planned to be completed in 2016 and start functioning in 2017. Also, plans for another supplying project to Kars-Tbilisi-Baku Railway, the Kars-IGDIR-Nakhchivan High-Speed Railway, has been completed. TCDD wants to have share from the freight traffic between Europe and China through this line. Ports. The state railways own and operate 7 ports throughout the country and has connections to 2 more ports. The ports TCDD owns are the port of Heydar Pasture in Istanbul on the southern mouth of the Bosphorus, the port of Izmir on the Aegean Sea, the port of Mersin and the port of Iskenderun on the Mediterranean Sea, the port of Bandırma on the Sea of Marmara, the port of Derrence on the Gulf of Izmit, and the port of Samsun on the Black Sea. The railways have connections to the port of Zonguldak, owned by Türkiye Kurumu, the port of Tekirdağ and the port of Tekirdağ, owned by KPORTAZ. In 2004, the privatization of all ports except Heydar Pasture began. By 2014, Mersin, Iskenderun, Bandırma, Samsun ports are privatized. Tender for privatization of Derensport has also completed and waiting for takeover. The state railways are planning on building rail connections to the port of Gaulik and to the port of Ereğli, which TCDD serviced until 2004. The ports TCDD owns are the most important in Turkey. The country's 5 largest ports are owned by the state railways. The port of Heydar Pasture will soon be decommissioned when the Marmaray project is complete. Performance, market share, assets and financial results. Since 1950, the railway system's market share of freight transportation dropped from 70% to 55%, 25%, 10% and to less than 10% in 2000. A similar trend was observed in the percentage of passenger transport performed by rail, dropping from a share of greater than 40% in 1950 to 25% in 1960, less than 10% in 1970, 5% by 1980, and reaching an all-time low of 2% by 2000. This was partly due to major investment and expansion in the road network. The TCDD receives subsidies from the government for socially necessary operations, but has registered increasing losses in all its areas of business except for port operations, which have high port tariffs. By 2000, the cost to the Turkish government had exceeded $500 million per year in addition to a subsidy of over $100 million. In addition to the problems caused by the lack of investment from 1950 onwards, the TCDD organization has been characterized as suffering from the common problems associated with state-owned enterprises, i.e. emphasis on production rather than customer needs, subject to government reliance and interference, and an inward-looking corporate culture. As of 2008, the amount of freight transported was the highest ever, though actual growth was small over the previous 10 years, and passenger figures had risen slightly overall over the past decade. As of 2008, the TCDD administers the Ankara Railway Factory, Sivas Concrete Sleeper Factory, Afian Concrete Sleeper Factory, the Hikby Rail Welding and Track Machinery Repair Factory and Kankeri Switch Factory. Additionally, the state-owned companies TULOMSAS, TUDEMSAS and TUVASAS are affiliates. The TCDD has a 50% share in the İzmir Banliyö Otobüs Mesleki System (ES), which operates the metro in Izmir, and a 15% share in EUROTEM. Fleet, active fleet, locomotives, diesel locomotives, electric locomotives, MUs, diesel MUs, electric MUs, rail cars, passenger cars, retired fleet, locomotives, diesel locomotives, electric locomotives, MUs, diesel MUs, electric MUs, rail cars network. TCDD directly owns and operates 8,697 kilometers of common carrier lines, of which 1,920 kilometers are electrified, throughout 57 provinces. Along with this, the railways own and operate over 240 kilometers of industrial lines and 206 kilometers of high-speed lines, with 574 kilometers of lines under construction. As of 2010, the railways consist of 763 tunnels, 25,441 bridges, 17 ways and 7 loops. The railways fleet consists of 467 mainline diesel locomotives, 67 electric locomotives, 860 passenger coaches, 135 MUs, 33 high-speed rail sets and 15,384 freight cars. TCDD also owns 3 rail ferries. Standards rail gauge 1435 mm. Electrification 25 kV 50 Hz AC overhead lines. Loading gauge UICGC. Traffic right-hand traffic. Pantograph 1950 mm and 1600 mm. Rail UICS 49 and UIC 60. Sleepers, wooden and steel and concrete. Fastening, base plate based with screw spikes and tension clamp. Platform height 380 mm, 550 mm and 1050 mm. Coupling, buffers and chains and Schaffenberg. Brake, air, curve minimum 200 meters and 3,500 meters. Electrification. Turkey has chosen to electrify the conventional 25 kV 50 Hz AC. The first electrified lines were the Istanbul suburban lines on the European side, from Sirkeci to Sogaksu, on December 4, 1955, and in the same period the E8000 electrical multiple units were taken into use. The suburban lines on the Asian side of Istanbul, from Heydar Pasture to Gebze, were electrified in 1969, while the Ankara suburban trains were electrified in 1972, on the line from Sincan to Gayes. On February 6, 1977 the tracks from Gebze to Adapazarı were made double-track and electrified, allowing the first mainline operation of electric trains in Turkey. The line from Arafiye outside Adapazarı to Eskişehir were further electrified in 1989, and in 1993 to Sincan, allowing electric train passages from Istanbul to Ankara. In 1994 the European lines from Istanbul to Edirne, Karpikul and the Bulgarian border were also electrified. The same year the line from Divrici to Iskenderun in eastern Turkey was also electrified, though this line is not connected to the rest of the electrified network. In 2006 the Izmir suburban system was also electrified. Railway links with adjacent countries. West neighboring countries. Bulgaria open 1435 mm to 25 kV 50 Hz AC. Greece open 1435 mm to 25 kV 50 Hz AC. East neighboring countries. Georgia under reconstruction. Break of gauge 1435 mm 1520 mm at Akarkalaki. Armenia closed since 1993. Break of gauge 1435 mm 1520 mm. Azerbaijan no direct link. Break of gauge 1435 mm 1520 mm via Georgia under reconstruction. Iran via Lake Van train ferry 1435 mm. Iraq no direct link. Traffic route to via Syria 1435 mm. Syria closed because of the Syrian civil war 1435 mm. Logistic Centers. TCDD is constructing 18 logistic centers to be completed till 2023 to increase the portion of railway and freight transportation. These centers will have railway-connected container yards, cranes, warehouses, customs service and other facilities. These 18 logistic centers are Halkani, Samsun Gelmen, USAK Kozakoi Izmit, Hasanbi Eskişehir, Kaklik Denizli, Bogazköprü Seri Yesilbey Istanbul, Gökhoy Balıkesir, Bozüyük Bilecik, Karsik Konya, Yenis Mersin, Shivas, Turkoglu Karaman Maris, Kars, Palandokun Erzurum, Mardan Yards and Depots. TCD TCDD owns and operates many facilities throughout Turkey. These facilities are yards for storing freight and passenger cars, depots and locomotive shops for repair and maintenance, and freight facilities for transferring or storing freight. Guvernlik Yard in central Ankara is the largest railway facility in Turkey. This multi-use facility includes a marshalling yard, passenger yard, 3 repair shops for passenger cars, freight cars and locomotives, freight transfer terminal, and a grain silo siding. The Heydar Pasture yard is the second largest yard in Turkey, consisting of a freight yard, passenger yard, 3 maintenance shops for locomotives, passenger cars and freight cars, and a loop for trains. Guvernlik Yard in Ankara is the largest rail yard in Turkey. Heydar Pasture Yard in Istanbul is the largest passenger yard in Turkey. Etimesgut Yard in Ankara is the largest high-speed rail yard in Turkey. Ispartikul Yard in Istanbul is a high-speed rail yard in Turkey. Tupraz Loading Facility is the largest freight yard in Turkey. Alkali Logistics Center is the largest multi-purpose freight yard in Turkey. Guvernlik Maintenance Facility is the largest electrified maintenance facility in Turkey. Harkarpina Maintenance Facility is the largest non-electrified maintenance facility in Turkey. Eskişehir Railway Shops are the largest railway construction facility in Turkey. Ferries. The Turkish State Railways own and operate 2 rail train ferries and connects to 3 others. The most famous of these would be the Bosphorus train ferry in Istanbul. This ferry connects Heydar Pasture on the Asian side with Sirkeci on the European side. Demirayolu and Demirayolu 2 are the 2 ferries that operate on the route and are owned by TCDD. By starting the project of Marmaray, TCDD ended the Bosphorus train ferry and announced an alternative ferry for the freight trains passing from Europe to Asia or vice versa. Tekirdağ Ferry. It's a private ferry named Erdemir working as a subcontractor of TCDD. Ferry did trials in 2012 and had started regular transportation at the end of 2013. Ferry has 5 lines with 800-meter total length. The other train ferry owned by TCDD would be the Lake Van ferry, connecting Tatvan and Van via Lake Van, Turkey's largest lake. This ferry is a part of the only railway connection between Turkey and Iran, and thereby between Europe and India. Van is the name of the ferry that operates on the route and is also fully owned by TCDD. Other train ferries. Derens, Turkey to Chornomorsk, Ukraine. TCDD owns and operates the port of Derens. Zonguldak to Ereğli, operated by Allianz Tempo Group. Samsun to Kavkaz, operated by UPM. Network extensions and modernizations. The Turkish State Railways currently has many network extension and modernization projects planned. TCDD is seeing the largest investment since the 1930s, and with these investments is constructing new lines, primarily high-speed lines. In addition to 5,000 kilometers high-speed line, Turkish Ministry of Transportation announced the construction of 4,000 kilometers new conventional rail lines as a part of 2023 strategy. TCDD has also been renewing the existing lines, some to be electrified, signalized and/or made double-tracked. The budget for renewals and infrastructure of existing lines is more than 1 billion TRY in 2014. There are also commuter rail projects like Marmara, Edremit, Baskentray, Gaziray that are complete, under construction or planning phase.